The name Elizabeth Báthory has become synonymous with horror, cruelty, and death. Accused of torturing and murdering hundreds of young girls, her legend has earned her the chilling title, the Blood Countess. Some claim she bathed in the blood of her victims, hoping to preserve her youth and beauty. Others argue that the stories were fabrications designed to destroy her influence and wealth. But who was the real Elizabeth Báthory? Was she a sadistic murderer, or was she a victim of political intrigue? Tonight, we uncover the dark and chilling history of one of the most infamous figures in European history. Elizabeth Báthory was born on August 7, 1560, into one of the most powerful and influential families in Hungary. The Báthorys were not just wealthy nobles, they were a dynasty. Her family controlled vast estates and held high positions in European politics, including kings, princes, and military leaders. Her uncle, Stephen Bathory, was the King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania. Growing up in such a privileged environment, Elizabeth had access to the finest education. Unlike many noble women of her time, who were expected to focus only on etiquette and marriage, she was taught mathematics, Latin, Greek, and several other languages. She was highly intelligent and known for her sharp mind, something that made her both admired and feared. But Elizabeth's childhood was not just one of luxury and refinement. It was also filled with darkness. Some historians believe that mental illness ran in her family. Her uncle was rumored to practice alchemy and black magic, while her aunt, Clara Bathory, was said to be a sadistic torturer who enjoyed inflicting pain on servants. Growing up in this environment, Elizabeth was exposed to extreme violence from an early age, violence that may have shaped her future actions. One of the most unsettling stories from her youth claims that she witnessed brutal punishments being carried out on disobedient servants. Tales of nobles burning, whipping, and mutilating their maids were not uncommon in 16th century Hungary. Some even say Elizabeth saw one of her own relatives sew a servant's mouth shut as punishment for speaking out of turn. Whether these experiences inspired her later crimes is uncertain, but they do paint a grim picture of the world she grew up in. At just 15 years old, Elizabeth was married to Ferenc Nadasdy, a nobleman and warrior known for his ruthless methods on the battlefield. The marriage was not based on love but was instead a strategic alliance between two powerful families. The wedding itself was a grand event, attended by thousands of nobles, and included a lavish feast that lasted for days. As a wedding gift, Ferenc presented Elizabeth with Achtis Castle, a massive fortress that stood isolated on a hilltop in present-day Slovakia. This castle would soon become the setting for one of history's darkest legends. Ferenc Nadasdy was often away at war, fighting against the Ottoman Empire, leaving Elizabeth to manage the estate. It was during this time that rumors of her cruelty began. Servants whispered that she had a violent temper and took pleasure in punishing those who displeased her. Some claim she practiced strange rituals, experimenting with herbal potions and even black magic. One of the most disturbing allegations suggests that Ferenc encouraged Elizabeth's brutality. It is said that he taught her various forms of torture, including one particularly sadistic method, covering a servant girl in honey and leaving her outside to be eaten alive by insects. If true, these acts may have been the foundation of the horrors that were yet to come. After Ferenc's death in 1604, Elizabeth became the sole ruler of her vast estates. With her husband gone, her alleged cruelty escalated. It is during this period that the darkest accusations against her took shape. Young peasant girls were brought to the castle, lured in by the promise of work as servants. These girls, often from poor families, would never be seen again. Witnesses claimed that screams echoed through the castle halls at night. Those who survived described horrifying torture sessions that seemed to have no purpose other than satisfying Elizabeth's sadistic pleasures. Some of the reported methods of torture included beating victims until their bodies were covered in bruises, burning girls with hot irons, branding them as if they were livestock, pouring freezing water over naked victims in winter, leaving them to freeze to death, sticking needles under their fingernails and lips, starving girls until they resorted to eating their own flesh. But the most infamous accusation against Elizabeth was the claim that she bathed in the blood of virgins. According to legend, she believed that blood had the power to keep her young and beautiful forever. But is there any truth to this claim? The idea of blood as a source of youth is deeply rooted in folklore, particularly in vampire legends. Some believe this story was exaggerated over time, turning her from a cruel noblewoman into something more monstrous. However, others argue that the sheer number of victims and eyewitness accounts suggest that she was more than just a harsh ruler. She was a murderer on a scale the world had never seen. For years, Elizabeth's crimes were ignored. She was a noblewoman, after all, and the laws of Hungary protected her from prosecution. However, as more and more girls went missing, the whispers turned into full-blown accusations. King Matthias II of Hungary, who owed a significant debt to the Bathory family, saw an opportunity. If Elizabeth was found guilty, her land and wealth could be seized. And so, in 1610, he ordered an official investigation, led by Count Georgi Thurzo. On the night of December 29, 1610, authorities raided Achtis castle. What they found was horrifying. Some reports claimed that they discovered dead and dying girls, bodies mutilated and drained of blood, and a dungeon filled with torture devices. One legend even states that Elizabeth was caught in the act of torturing a girl, though this detail remains debated. Over 300 witnesses testified against her. Servants, villagers, and even members of the nobility described gruesome scenes of murder and cruelty. However, there's one detail worth noting. Many of these testimonies came from people who had been tortured themselves into confessing. Could it be that Elizabeth was framed? Despite the overwhelming accusations, Elizabeth Báthory was never put on trial. Her noble status protected her from execution, but she was sentenced to house arrest. She was sealed inside her castle, her windows bricked shut, with only a small hole through which food was passed. For 4 years, she remained in isolation, unable to see the outside world. Her mind began to wither. On August 21, 1614, she was found dead in her chamber. Some say she died peacefully in her sleep, while others believe she succumbed to madness and despair. To this day, the true story of Elizabeth Báthory remains a mystery. Was she truly a sadistic killer, or was she the victim of political intrigue? Some historians argue that the allegations were exaggerated, fueled by men who sought to strip her of power and wealth.